History remembers the wars of kings, the wars of dragons, the wars of ice and fire. It remembers the names carved into stone: Aegon the Conqueror, Robert Baratheon, the Mad King whose madness burned everything he touched. It remembers the thrones won and the thrones lost, and the specific terrible mathematics of civilizations that spent centuries perfecting the art of destroying themselves. What history does not remember, what history had no language for, was the night the sky became something different. It happened beyond the wall, where the cold was oldest and the dark was deepest, and the men who stood watch there had long ago made their peace with seeing things that the rest of the world preferred not to believe. They had seen giants. They had seen White Walkers moving through the dark like something the cold itself had decided to become. They had seen the army of the dead stretch to every horizon simultaneously, and understood in that specific moment that the word army was insufficient. They thought they had seen everything worth fearing. They were wrong. On a night in the 33rd year of the long autumn, the stars moved, not drifted, not shifted with the seasonal rotation that masters charted and sailors navigated by. Moved deliberately, impossibly, the specific movement of something enormous traveling at a speed that the human mind registered as wrong before it registered as real. The Night's Watch garrison at Castle Black saw it first. "A comet," the youngest brother said. "A falling star," the older one replied. Then the sky tore open, not metaphorically, not the way people said the sky opened when they meant it rained. The boundary between the world and whatever lay beyond it, the specific fabric of the universe itself, split like cloth under stress. And through that tear came light that made the wildfire of Blackwater Bay look like a candle held against the sun. Rainbow luminescence that had no name in any language spoken on this world. And falling through it, a ship. Not a ship of wood and sail and the specific human ingenuity of people who had learned to use the wind. A city of steel. 3 kilometers of the most advanced weapons platform humanity had ever built, dropping through a tear in the sky above a world where the sharpest weapon was a sword, where the fastest communication was a raven, where the most powerful fortress was made of stone. The UNSC Infinity had arrived, not by choice, not by navigation, by the specific catastrophic accident of a slipspace experiment that had gone wrong in ways that the UNSC's best scientists had calculated were impossible. The impossible had declined to consult the calculations, and aboard that ship, in his quarters between the last impossible fight and the next one, existing in the specific rare condition of a Spartan, with nothing immediately requiring him to prevent extinction, was the soldier who had ended civilizations. Not metaphorically, actually. The Spartan the UNSC had designated John 117, the soldier the world knew to the extent that the world knew him at all, as Master Chief. Westeros had spent centuries perfecting its wars. It had refined the specific art of human conflict to its absolute medieval maximum. The politics, the betrayals, the dragons, the Game of Thrones, and everything that game had cost. It believed it understood war. It had no idea, because above its frozen north, above its wall and its armies of the dead, and its ancient magic and its 1,000-year-old political grievances, the Infinity's sensors were already running, and Master Chief was already reading the briefing, and the Night King, The specific cold intelligence that had been the most powerful thing on this planet for 8,000 years was about to feel for the first time in 8,000 years something that he had no category for, something that looked at what he was and was not afraid. The real war had just arrived. The bridge of the UNSC Infinity was not a place that panicked. This was not because the people on it were incapable of panic. They were human, mostly, and humans panicked. It was one of the more reliable qualities of the species. It was because Captain Thomas Lasky had spent 3 years commanding the most significant warship in human history through situations that would have been described as unsurvivable by anyone who had not subsequently survived them, and he had selected his bridge crew with the specific criteria of someone who understood that the difference between a crew that functioned under pressure and a crew that did not was not capability. It was the specific trained quality of people who had learned to process fear as information rather than instruction. Fear said, "This is dangerous." Lasky's crew heard that. Fear also said, "Stop everything and wait for the danger to go away." Lasky's crew had learned not to hear that part. So when the navigation console showed coordinates that did not correspond to any point in the cataloged observable universe, when Roland's alert tone filled the bridge with the specific urgency that preceded his most significant announcements, when the main display showed a star that was not in any UNSC chart and a planet orbiting it that should not exist, and long-range sensors began returning data that did not fit any known framework, the bridge crew did their jobs, quietly, efficiently, with the compressed focus of people who were afraid and were converting the fear into something useful. "Slip space exit confirmed," Lieutenant Chen said from navigation. "Coordinates are, sir, the coordinate system is not returning valid data, and navigation is showing no match to any cataloged stellar position." "How wide is the search radius?" Lasky said. "Full range, sir. Every cataloged star in the UNSC database." A pause. "Nothing." "Roland," Lasky said. "Already on it, Captain." Roland's avatar, a holographic figure in UNSC uniform, compact, precise, with the expression he used when he was running at capacity on something genuinely difficult, materialized at the central holotable. "I've run the stellar cartography comparison 17 times in the last 40 seconds. I keep hoping the 18th will give me a different answer." "It hasn't?" "It has not," Roland confirmed. "We are not in any region of space that the UNSC has charted, explored, theorized about, or meaningfully speculated on. We are not in any region of space that the Covenant charted, which covers a significant portion of the galaxy. We are not near any Forerunner installation I can identify, which covers Roland. We are somewhere else entirely, sir. I am working on a more precise characterization." Lasky looked at the planet on the main display. Blue and green. One moon. Atmosphere reading as breathable. Oxygen-nitrogen mix. Slightly higher oxygen content than Earth standard, but within human tolerance. Land masses covered in what long-range imaging was resolving as the sensors calibrated to the task into, "Sir," said Lieutenant Commander Osei from the science station. His voice had the flat quality of someone delivering information he found genuinely difficult to believe. "Surface scans are showing structures extensive, what appears to be urban settlement patterns across multiple continents, concentrated in specific defensible geographic locations. Human? Biological signatures are consistent with human. No deviations I can identify at this resolution. He paused. Sir, the structures are stone. Largely, some wood construction. The largest settlements show population densities consistent with pre-industrial urban centers. Pre-industrial, Lasky repeated. Yes, sir. No radio frequency emissions, no electronic signals of any kind, no orbital infrastructure, no evidence of any technology beyond what I would characterize as approximately 15th century Earth equivalent. He paused again. There are what appear to be large domesticated animals being used for agricultural and transport purposes. Horses, said Ensign Markov from the sensor station, with the specific quality of someone who had grown up watching historical dramas and was experiencing a complicated form of recognition. Sir, those are horses. Also, Osei said, and his voice had changed, the flat delivery acquiring a specific new quality that Lasky had learned to identify over 3 years as the quality of someone about to say something they wished they did not have to say. There are swords. The bridge was quiet. Swords, Lasky said. Extensive evidence of organized armed forces across multiple population centers. The primary personal armaments visible at current sensor resolution appear to be swords, spears, and bows. He paused. And in the south of the primary continent, sir, I need you to look at section 17 of the surface scan. Lasky looked at section 17, at the long-range thermal imaging of a specific southern region, at 3 signatures that were large and airborne and generating heat in quantities that his science officer's instruments were having significant difficulty characterizing. Roland, Lasky said. I see them, Roland said. I have been staring at those readings for approximately 22 seconds, trying to find an alternative explanation. Did you find one? No, sir. What are they? Roland's avatar looked at the display with the expression of an AI who had processed approximately 1 billion pieces of information in the course of his operational existence, and was encountering something that the 1 billion pieces had not prepared him for. Sir, he said carefully, the thermal signatures, wingspan measurements, and general morphological profile are most consistent with, he paused, with an animal that by the scientific consensus of every xenobiologist who has ever studied the question should not exist. Roland. Dragons, sir, Roland said. The readings are most consistent with what I can only describe as dragons. The bridge absorbed this. Of course they are, Lasky said. He said it the way he said things when the situation had exceeded the available categories, and he had decided that the most productive response was to keep moving. He looked at the display, at the planet, at the horses and the swords and the pre-industrial stone architecture and the 3 airborne signatures that Roland had reluctantly characterized as dragons. Section 9, Osei said. Sir, the northern region. Lasky looked at Section 9, at the long-range sensor data from the planet's northern polar region, at a structure that was significant, 700 feet of something that his sensors were reading as ice aggregate construction, running in a line that stretched from coast to coast across the top of the primary continent's northernmost habitable landmass, the largest man-made structure visible on the planet's surface by an order of magnitude. And beyond it, Roland, Lasky said. His voice had changed. Not alarmed, The bridge crew recognized the specific quality of Lasky's voice changing in this direction and responded by becoming very still and very attentive. The biological readings from the northern region, the ones north of that structure. "Yes, sir," Roland said. "Talk me through them." Roland was quiet for a moment. In 3 years of working with Roland, Lasky had learned that Roland's silences were calibrated. He was not an AI who paused unnecessarily, which meant the pauses he did take were the pauses of someone choosing words with specific care. "The biological signatures north of the large ice structure," Roland said, "number in the tens of thousands, possibly more. The density of the formation is making individual count difficult." He paused. "They are reading as human biological profiles." "Then it's a population center," Lasky said. "No, sir," Roland said. "That's the part I need you to understand." Another pause. "They are reading as human biological profiles. Specifically, they are reading as human biological tissue, muscle, bone, organ structure, human." He paused. "But there is no metabolic activity, no respiration, no cardiac function, no brain activity." The bridge was very quiet. "Roland," Lasky said, "human biological tissue, no metabolic function." "Yes, sir. That's dead, sir," Roland said. "By every biological indicator I have, the beings generating those readings are dead." He paused. "They are also moving." Lasky looked at the sensor data, at the tens of thousands of dead biological signatures arranged in formations that were tactical. The specific arrangement of an organized military force, moving with coordinated purpose, advancing in a direction that was clearly and specifically south, toward the ice structure, toward the people on the other side of it. "Something is controlling them," Lasky said. "Yes, sir," Roland said. "At the center of the formation, there is a single signature that is different, not dead, not alive in the standard biological sense, something that the instruments are having difficulty characterizing because the instruments were not designed to characterize it." He paused. "The best I can offer, sir, is that whatever is at the center of that formation is the source of direction for everything around it. Remove it, and the formation presumably loses its coherence." "Presumably," Lasky said. "We have been on this planet for approximately 4 minutes, sir," Roland said. "My certainty levels are lower than I would prefer." Lasky looked at the display, at the dead army moving south, at the thing at its center, at the ice structure it was moving toward, at the people on the other side of the ice structure who had, as far as his sensors could determine, swords. He thought about the specific weight of a situation. He had thought about the specific weight of a lot of situations. This one was heavier than most. "Get me Commander Palmer," he said, "and someone wake the chief." Master Chief received the briefing in the ship's combat preparation bay. This was not because the combat preparation bay was where briefings happened. Briefings happened on the bridge, in the command center, in the specific official spaces the UNSC had designated for the transmission of operational intelligence. It was because the chief had been in the combat preparation bay when Roland's summons arrived, doing what Spartans did in combat preparation bays, and Lasky had decided that sending the briefing to where the chief was would be faster than moving the chief to where the briefing was. Speed in situations like this mattered. Roland materialized on the bay's hollow table and delivered the situation report with the comprehensive efficiency of an AI who understood that the chief's briefing requirements were different from other people's briefing requirements. Other people needed context, framing, the specific narrative architecture that allowed human minds to process large amounts of information in a sequence that made sense. The chief needed what, where, how many, and what are we doing about it? Roland provided all four. The chief listened. He listened the way he did everything, completely without visible reaction, with the specific focused quality of a mind that was simultaneously receiving information and building response matrices for it. Roland had been briefing the chief for 3 years and had learned to read the absence of response as the presence of processing. The chief wasn't quiet because he wasn't engaged. He was quiet because engagement for him was internal. When Roland finished, the chief said, "The dead things, controlled?" "By the central signature, yes. Our analysis suggests." "One source, whole army falls," the chief said. "Standard command and control vulnerability." Roland paused. Yes, that is the working hypothesis." "What's the source?" "The central entity, the one with the anomalous signature." Roland displayed the sensor data. "It is at the center of the army, in a position that suggests both direction of command and self-protection through force concentration around it." The chief looked at the data. "Smart," he said. The entity. Position. If you're running an army on a direct mental link, you put yourself where the army has to come through to reach you." He paused. "What kind of force penetration would we need to reach it?" "Chief, we have been on this planet for approximately..." "Estimate." Roland ran the calculation. "Significant," he said. "The army is tens of thousands of animated dead. They do not tire, do not feel pain, and do not break morale. Ground force penetration to the central entity would require sustained engagement under extremely adverse conditions." He paused. "And sir, there is the additional factor of the entity's apparent ability to expand its army." "Every kill adds to its force," the chief said. "Yes." "Flood behavior." Roland was quiet for a moment. "The mechanism is different," he said. "There is no biological infection vector. It appears to be direct animation of already dead tissue through..." "I am going to use the word the captain used, which is the only word that currently fits the data." "Magic," the chief said. "Yes, sir." The chief looked at the sensor display, at the army, at the structure between the army and the civilian population south of it, at what the structure was made of. "The wall," he said. "Ice aggregate construction, 1,700 meters of it. 700 feet tall, approximately 300 miles in length," Roland confirmed. "Based on what we can determine from the surrounding geography and the historical evidence of settlement patterns on both sides, it has been standing for a very long time." "How long?" "Sensor analysis of the lower courses suggests thousands of years," Roland said. "The wall was not built to stop an army in the conventional sense. The mass-to-height ratio, the specific construction methodology..." He paused. "It was built to stop that specific army. The people who built it knew what was coming." The chief looked at the wall, at the people on top of it, barely visible at this resolution, tiny figures in black against the ice, at what they were looking at from the other side. at what they had been looking at probably for a very long time. "They built it right," he said. Roland paused. "Sir?" "Whoever built that wall understood the problem," the chief said. "Wrong materials. Ice won't hold indefinitely. It degrades. The army on the other side doesn't degrade. Wrong garrison. There's no way to adequately man a structure that long with the numbers they appear to have." He paused. But the concept is right. You can't outfight something that replenishes from your casualties. You contain it. You hold the line. The concept is 3,000 years old, and the line is currently held by what appears to be fewer than 100 men in black cloaks," Roland said. "That's a staffing problem," the chief said, "not a conceptual one." He looked at Roland. "What does the captain need from me?" "Assessment," Roland said. "He wants your read on the tactical situation before he makes any decisions about engagement. Tell him my read is, the army reaches the civilian population in approximately 72 hours, if nothing changes. The wall buys time, but not indefinitely. The central entity is the objective." He paused. "And tell him we are going to need to talk to the people on the ground." "The people with the swords," Roland said. "The people with the swords have been living next to this problem for longer than our civilization has existed," the chief said. "They know things we don't." Roland considered this. "That is a remarkably pragmatic assessment of a pre-industrial population's intelligence value, sir." "Knowledge isn't the same as technology, Roland," the chief said. "They've been studying this enemy for thousands of years. We've been here 4 minutes." He picked up his helmet. "Set up a communication attempt," he said. "Something they can receive and understand, and have a pelican ready." "For what, sir?" The chief looked at the planet on the display, at the wall, at the army, at the people with the swords who had been holding a line against something that should have been impossible, and had been holding it with the specific stubborn determination of people who did not have an alternative to holding it. "Reconnaissance," he said. "I want to see it myself." "Sir, the northern region's conditions are—" "Prepare the pelican, Roland." Roland made the specific sound he made when he had an objection that he had assessed was not going to change the outcome, but felt the objection was worth registering. "Yes, sir," he said. The wall looked different from the air, not smaller. The chief had not expected smaller. The sensor data had been clear about the dimensions, and he did not revise physical reality downward because he wanted it to be more manageable. It looked different in the specific way that things looked different when you encountered them directly rather than through instruments. The instruments gave you numbers. Direct observation gave you weight. 700 feet of ice catching the pre-dawn light from a sun that was not Earth's sun, in a sky that had the specific quality of a sky that had never had anything in it, that moved the way the pelican moved. Below it, on the southern face, a garrison that his targeting system was counting at 63 individuals, black-cloaked, armed with what his optical systems were cataloging as swords, bows, and the specific kind of determination that manifested physically as people standing at the edge of something terrible and not stepping back. He had recognized that kind of determination before, on better-equipped people. "Castle Black," Roland said in his ear. "The garrison at the base of the wall's center, primary installation for what appears to be an organization called the Night's Watch. Their entire organizational purpose, as best I can determine from the limited atmospheric audio we've collected, is to man this wall and guard the passage through it. Current strength estimate, the chief said, 60 to 70 individuals at this location. Additional installations along the wall's length appear largely abandoned. A pause. Sir, the wall is 300 miles long, and based on the construction and the size of the abandoned installations, it was built for a garrison of tens of thousands. And they have 60, the chief said. Yes, sir. How long have they been at 60? Unknown, but the degree of deterioration in the unmanned sections suggests years, possibly decades. The chief looked at the wall. At 63 people trying to man a structure built for tens of thousands, at what was on the other side. Take us over the top, he said to the Pelican's pilot, Lieutenant Park. Park did not ask why. She had been flying the chief on reconnaissance operations for 8 months and had learned that asking why was a question for after the mission, when the mission had provided the answer. The Pelican rose, cleared the wall's battlements, and the north opened up beneath them. The army of the dead occupied the landscape the way weather occupied it, not as a collection of individuals, but as a condition. From altitude, the individual whites were not individually visible. What was visible was the mass of them, the specific gray-brown quality of tens of thousands of dead bodies in formation, covering the snow-covered ground with the density of something that had been accumulating rather than assembling. It had not assembled, it had accumulated. Every death north of the wall, over however many years this had been building, added to it. The army was not recruited, it was grown. The specific terrible patience of something that understood. That time was its primary resource and had been spending time the way other armies spent gold. 30,000 confirmed, Roland said. Possibly significantly more beyond current sensor range. The formation extends further north than our current scan covers. Movement pattern, the chief said. South. Consistent southward movement at a pace approximately equivalent to a slow human march. No variation in the last 6 hours of observation. Roland paused. The pace is deliberate, sir, not fast, not slow. The pace of something that knows it will arrive regardless of what the people in the way do about it. Contact with the wall at current rate, the chief said. 18 hours, perhaps less, Park said from the cockpit. Chief, 11 o'clock. The chief looked at the specific point in the formation that Park had identified, at the figures that were not whites, taller, moving differently, not the lurching animation of raised dead, but the specific deliberate grace of something that was cold at its fundamental level rather than dead. 6 of them arranged at the formation's front with the positioning of commanders rather than soldiers. White walkers. The sensors had flagged them in the initial scan. Seeing them directly was different. They're leading it, the chief said. Yes, the White Walkers appear to serve as the Night King's direct instruments, more sophisticated than the standard whites, capable of independent tactical action within the Night King's apparent direction. Roland paused. Think of them as elites, the chief said. That analogy is functionally correct. High-capability units operating under central command, used for specific tactical objectives rather than mass force application. He paused. Where is the Night King? Center of the formation, approximately 12 kilometers behind the forward walker elements. Roland's voice changed slightly. "Sir, he is looking at us." The chief looked at the sensor feed showing the Night King's position, at the figure at the formation's center, at the specific quality of its stillness. Not the stillness of an object, but the stillness of a mind. Something that had seen the pelican and had made a decision not to react immediately, and was looking at it with the focused assessment of something that was very old and very intelligent, and was encountering a variable it had not previously encountered. "He knows we're different," the chief said. He has been looking at this pelican since we crossed the wall," Roland said. "He has not altered the army's movement. He has not directed anything against us. He is studying," the chief said. "Yes, sir." The chief looked at the Night King. At 8,000 years of advancing and accumulating, and the specific cold patience of something that had never needed to be in a hurry, because hurry was a concept for things that could run out of time. "Roland," he said, "Sir, get me everything on the Night King's behavior patterns. Every engagement the Night's Watch has recorded, every account from survivors, anything the atmospheric intercepts have given us." He paused. "I want to understand how he thinks." "You're going to fight him," Roland said. "I'm going to understand him," the chief said. "Fighting comes after understanding." "Sir, given the timeline—" "You understand what you're fighting before you fight it," the chief said. "Always. Rushing that step is how you lose." Roland was quiet for a moment. "I will compile everything we have," he said. "And Roland, sir, the people on top of this wall, the 63 in black cloaks." He paused. "Any indication they know we're here?" "Sir, we are a Pelican gunship flying over a pre-industrial civilization," Roland said. "I believe there is a non-trivial probability that they have noticed." The chief almost said something, did not. "Take us back over the wall," he said to Park. "Find a landing position that is visible from the castle, but not immediately threatening. Clear ground, open approach. Give them room to come to us." Park found the spot. "Put the Pelican down in a clearing 400 meters south of Castle Black's main gate." The chief stepped out into cold air that tasted different from any atmosphere he had breathed. Not wrong. Different. Old. The specific quality of air that had been cycling through the same geography for thousands of years without industrial interference, carrying the scent of pine and ice, and something that his sensory augmentations registered and did not have a category for. The specific smell of a world that had magic in it, apparently, because this world had magic in it and magic had a smell. He filed this, stood in the clearing, waited. Jon Snow had been on the wall when the Pelican made its first pass. He had been there because he had been on the wall since midnight, not because duty required it. The duty was satisfied by the rotation of the garrison, and Jon had fulfilled his rotation hours ago. He had been there because the wall was where he went when the thinking would not stop, and the thinking had not stopped since the ravens had started arriving from the ranging parties with the same message, in different handwriting: more dead. Moving south, more than before. He had been on the wall when the stars moved. He had watched the Pelican cross overhead with the specific focused attention of someone who had learned that everything he did not understand about the North was worth learning. The ship, not a ship. He had no word for it. Ship was the closest available word, but ships were wood and sail and water, and this thing was none of those things. The ship had crossed the sky above him at a speed that made the fastest horse look like standing still, and had gone north over the wall, and had come back 20 minutes later and had descended to the clearing 400 meters from the gate. He had come down from the wall. "John," Ed said from behind him. Edison Tollett, who had been at the wall long enough that very little surprised him, and this was surprising him. "What is that thing?" "I don't know," John said. "What are you going to do about it?" John looked at the machine sitting in the clearing, at its lines, nothing natural in them, nothing organic, the specific deliberate geometry of something that had been made rather than grown, weapons visible on its exterior, now propulsion systems that were still faintly glowing with some residual energy. "Talk to it," he said. "It might kill you," Ed said. "Everything north of this wall might kill me," John said. "I haven't stopped talking to things yet." He walked. Ghost walked with him. The dire wolf had been at his heels since the pelican first appeared, with the specific attentiveness he had when he was processing something that was outside his experience. Ghost processed threats immediately. He went flat and still, and the hackles came up. This was different. Ghost was upright, attentive, moving with John without urgency, his white head tilting slightly as they approached the pelican. The figure standing beside it was large. Not large the way large men were large. Large the way constructed things were large. The armor was the specific gray-green of something that had been built to absorb punishment, carrying the marks of previous engagement in the specific way that armor that had been used carried them. Not decorative damage, functional damage, the evidence of a history of things trying to break it. The helmet was sealed. John could not see a face. What he could see, the figure was armed. The weapon on its back was not a sword, and was not a bow, and was not anything John had a word for. It was not raised. The figure was waiting, with the specific quality of something that had decided to let the other person set the terms. John stopped 12 feet away. They looked at each other. Ghost sat down. John took this as information. "My name is Jon Snow," he said, "Lord Commander of the Night's Watch." He paused. "I don't know what you are, but I don't know what that," he gestured at the pelican, "is. But you came from the sky, and you went north over the wall, and you came back, which means you saw what's north of it." He looked at the helmet, at the visor that did not show him a face. "I need to know if you're here to help or to make it worse," he said. A pause. The voice that came back was lower than he expected, flat. The specific flatness of someone who had compressed everything except the essential into the smallest possible space, carrying more in the compression than most people carried in elaboration. "What's north of your wall is going to reach it in 18 hours, the voice said. "Maybe less." John stared at the helmet. "You counted them," he said. "Estimated. Sensors aren't perfect at that density." A pause. 30,000 confirmed. Possibly more beyond the scan range. John absorbed this. "The Night King," he said. "The one leading them. You saw him." "Yes." "What did you think?" The pause that followed was not a long one. 3 seconds, maybe 4. But it was the specific pause of someone who had been asked a genuine question and was giving it a genuine answer rather than a performative one. "I think," the voice said, "that he has been doing this for a very long time, without anything being able to stop him, and that he knows we're here and he doesn't know what to make of us yet." Another pause. That last part is useful. Jon looked at the figure, at the armor, at the weapon on its back, at the specific quality of the stillness of something that was entirely comfortable being looked at because it had nothing to hide and no performance to maintain. "You've fought things like him before," Jon said. "Not exactly like him," the voice said, "but like him." The helmet tilted, a small movement, almost like a nod. "Close enough," the voice said. Ghost stood, walked forward 3 steps, sniffed the armor, made the sound that was not a growl and was not nothing, the specific sound of an animal completing an assessment and arriving at a conclusion, sat down again, directly beside the figure. Jon looked at his direwolf. Ghost had been alive for 5 years and in that time had identified every threat that came near Jon with the specific accuracy of something that understood threat at a level that preceded thought. He had never sat down beside a threat. "He doesn't do that with people he doesn't trust," Jon said. "Good instincts," the figure said. And then, after a pause, "Yours too." Jon looked at the helmet. "You haven't told me your name," he said. "Master Chief," the voice said. "Spartan Jon 117, UNSC Infinity." "What does any of that mean?" "It means I'm a soldier from a long way away, who just saw your problem and is here to understand it better." A pause. "The understanding comes before the helping, but yes, we're here to help." Jon looked at him, at the armor, at the cleared ground around them, at the sky above, where, if he had known where to look, the infinity was visible as a shape against the stars. He thought about the wall, about 18 hours, about 30,000 confirmed and possibly more beyond the scan range. About everything he had tried and everything he had lost and the specific exhaustion of someone who had been carrying an impossible problem for so long that impossible had stopped feeling like a category and had started feeling like a condition. He thought about Ghost sitting beside a figure in armor that had no business existing in this world. He made a decision. "Come inside," he said. "I'll tell you everything I know." The figure, the chief, picked up Mjolnir. "No," Jon corrected himself. The chief did not carry Mjolnir. The chief picked up a weapon from the ground beside him. The Pelican's exit ramp, a rifle of some kind, the specific geometry of something designed to project force at significant distance. He walked beside Jon toward Castle Black. Ghost walked between them. In the clearing behind them, the Pelican sat and hummed with the residual energy of its propulsion systems. Above the wall, somewhere in the dark, an army of the dead marched south. And somewhere in the sky above it all, the UNSC Infinity held position, and Roland ran his analysis, and Lasky stood at the observation port and looked at the world below with the specific quality of a man who had been in enough impossible situations to recognize one. "Sir," Roland said from his station. "I see it," Lasky said. "The chief has made contact with the local population." "I know." The direwolf sat beside him. "I saw." "I am choosing to take that as a positive indicator." "So am I," Lasky said. He looked at the wall, at the army on the other side of it, at 18 hours, at everything that needed to happen in 18 hours that had not happened yet. "Get Commander Palmer," he said. We need to talk about what comes next. Castle Black's great hall had seen many things. It had seen Night's Watch brothers eat in the specific silence of men who had looked at what was north of the wall and had come back changed by the looking. It had seen ranging parties return short of the people they had left with. It had seen Jon Snow stand at its head and try to explain to men whose entire framework was built around the specific medieval logic of human conflict, that the enemy they were facing was not human and did not operate by the logic of human conflict, and that the framework therefore required revision. It had not seen anything like this. The chief stood at one end of the hall's central table in his armor, which in the hall's torchlight had the quality of something that did not belong. Too angular, too deliberately constructed, carrying the specific geometry of the future in a room built entirely from the past. Around the table, Jon Snow, Tormund Giantsbane, Ed Tollett, and 3 Night's Watch brothers, whose names the chief had noted and filed and would remember, because the chief remembered everything he was told about people he was going to fight alongside. Ghost had taken a position in the corner that gave him sightlines on the door, the windows, and the chief simultaneously. The chief had noticed this and found it professionally competent. Roland was present in audio only, his connection to the hall running through a small relay device the chief had placed on the table, a black cylinder approximately 10 centimeters tall that the Night's Watch brothers were looking at, with the expressions of people trying to determine whether it was dangerous. "It is not dangerous," the chief said, without being asked. Tormund, who had been looking at the cylinder with the specific assessment of a man who had survived long enough to develop accurate threat instincts. "What is it?" "Communication device," the chief said. "My ship's AI uses it to stay in contact." "Your ship," Tormund said. "The thing in the sky." "Yes, it's yours. I serve on it. Captain Lasky commands it." Tormund looked at the ceiling as if he could see through it to the infinity above. "How many men on your ship?" he said. "Approximately 17,000, Roland said from the cylinder. The table went quiet. 17,000, Ed said, flatly, with the specific quality of someone doing arithmetic and finding the result transformative. "Plus equipment," Roland said. "If it would be helpful, I can provide a full inventory, though I should note that much of the equipment will require context to understand its function, and I have approximately 18 hours before the context becomes less theoretical." Jon looked at the cylinder, at the chief. "Your ship AI," he said. "It talks." "Constantly," the chief said. "I prefer fluently," Roland said. "Constantly implies I say things that don't need saying. I say things that need saying. The frequency happens to be high because many things need saying." Jon absorbed this. 17,000 soldiers, he said. 17,000 personnel, Roland corrected. "Not all of them are combat rated. Approximately 4,000 are what I would classify as combat effective for the current tactical situation. The remainder are support, science, medical, and engineering staff." 4,000, Jon said. "Yes. Against 30,000 dead things and whatever the Night King is." "The Night King is the strategic objective," the chief said, "not the army. The army is an obstacle to the objective." Jon looked at him. "I know that," Jon said. "Everyone who has ever thought seriously about this problem knows that." He paused. "Knowing it and doing it are different things. The army is between us and him." "Yes," the chief said. "So we clear the army." "With 4,000 soldiers," John said, "against 30,000 dead." "We don't fight them all," the chief said. "We create a corridor, narrow enough to defend, direct enough to reach the Night King. We don't need to destroy the army. We need to get through it." John looked at him, at the specific quality of a mind that had reduced a problem that had been killing people for 8,000 years to a geometry problem. "He raises our dead," John said. "Anyone we lose fighting through becomes part of the army we're fighting through." "Yes," the chief said. "That changes the math." "Changes it how?" "Every casualty is a liability twice, once when they fall, once when they rise," the chief said. "Which means the force composition and engagement doctrine need to account for it. You don't fight these things with a line. You fight them with a wedge, concentrated, mobile. Every fallen position is evacuated before the dead can be raised from it." "That's," John started. "Difficult? Yes, but not impossible." Tormund had been watching this exchange with the focused attention of a man who had been processing combat problems for 30 years and was hearing an approach he had not heard before. "You've fought things like this," he said to the chief. "Not a question." "Similar," the chief said. "The flood," Roland offered. "Roland," the chief said. "It's relevant tactical context," Roland said. "The flood is a parasitic intelligence that animates dead and living tissue, expands its forces through casualties, and operates under a central command structure. The Night King's army shares several functional characteristics. Understanding how the chief has addressed the flood is directly relevant to addressing the Night King's army." The Night's Watch brothers looked at each other. "What's the flood?" Ed said. "Something we dealt with," the chief said. "It's not here. What is here is the Night King." "I was making the point that the chief has relevant experience," Roland said. "I know what point you were making." "Then I'm unclear why." Roland made the sound he made when he had decided his objection was registered and did not require further elaboration. John looked at the exchange between the chief and his ship's AI with the expression of someone who had just been given an unexpectedly human piece of information about both of them. "How long have you been together?" John said. The chief looked at him. "The chief and I have been working together for 3 years, Roland said, "though he has had other AI partners in the past. Our relationship has been..." "Fine, Roland," the chief said. "Productive," Roland finished. "And occasionally argumentative, but I maintain that the arguing is also productive." John almost smiled, did not quite. "Tell me about the Night King," the chief said. "Everything you know, not the legends, what you've seen." John told him. He told it the way he told things when the audience was operational rather than political. Stripped of the specific narrative architecture that made it convincing to people who needed convincing, delivered as a series of observed facts in the order he had observed them. The fist of the first men, what he had seen, the White Walkers moving through the dead, the Night King raising the fallen rangers with a gesture, the specific quality of the intelligence in the Night King's eyes across the battlefield. The chief listened without interrupting. When John finished, there was a silence that Roland did not fill, which was how the chief had learned to signal that he was processing rather than inviting further input. "He raised them from a distance," the chief said. How far? 100 meters, maybe more. And they rose immediately? No delay? Almost immediate, a few seconds. Which means the animation is not a process he initiates and waits for. It is instantaneous within his operational range. The chief paused. What is his operational range? I don't know, John said. Estimate. Everything we've seen suggests he needs line of sight or close proximity, but you don't have evidence that's a hard limit, the chief said. No. Then we treat it as unlimited until proven otherwise, the chief said. You build your tactics around worst case, not best case. Tormund said, You talk like a general. I talk like someone who has learned what happens when you assume the enemy is less capable than they might be, the chief said. What happens? Tormund said. You die, the chief said, and then you become the enemy. Tormund was quiet. Then, I like him, he said to Jon. You don't know him, Jon said. He said the thing simply, Tormund said. Men who say the thing simply are usually the ones worth following. The chief looked at Tormund, at the specific quality of the assessment. Filed it. The dragon glass, Roland said. We intercepted audio references to it in the atmospheric data. Chief, the locals have identified a substance, volcanic glass, that is effective against the White Walkers and the Whites. Based on the mineral analysis from the surface scans, there are significant deposits. Dragonstone, Jon said. In the south, we know. Do you have access to it? The chief said. Jon's expression changed, not with the straightforward answer, with the specific complication of someone for whom the answer involved a political situation he did not have time to fully explain. It's complicated, he said. How complicated? The chief said. Daenerys Targaryen controls Dragonstone, Jon said. She has the dragon glass. She also has 3 dragons and the largest army currently operating in Westeros. He paused. She wants the Iron Throne. I need her help. You haven't gotten it yet, the chief said. Not yet. What's the obstacle? She wants me to bend the knee, Jon said. Pledge my allegiance to her as queen. The chief was quiet for a moment. Is she competent? He said. Jon blinked. What? Is she a competent military commander? Does she understand the Night King threat? Will she commit her forces to the northern engagement rather than using them for political advantage? Jon absorbed the specific directness of this. He started, stopped. She's genuine about wanting to help. She has 3 dragons. She understands the threat is real. He paused. But she is also what? The chief said. Also a queen who has been building toward claiming her kingdom her entire life. And the Iron Throne is directly in the line of sight between her and the Night King, and she is having trouble seeing past it, Jon said. The chief was quiet. That's a different problem, he said. Yes, Jon agreed. One thing at a time, the chief said. The Night King reaches this wall in 18 hours. Daenerys is the dragonglass problem. I'll address the dragonglass problem when I've addressed the 18-hour problem. He paused. What do you need in the next 6 hours? Jon looked at him. At the specific quality of a man who had just restructured an impossible situation into a sequence of addressable problems. I need to know what your 4,000 soldiers can do, Jon said. Specifically. Roland, the chief said. Already building the briefing, Roland said. I will note for context. that among the 4,000 combat-effective personnel, there are 12 Spartan IV-class soldiers operating in powered armor comparable to the chief's, approximately 800 UNSC Marines in full combat kit and various support elements. He paused. I will also note that we have aircraft. Tormund. What's aircraft? Roland. Flying machines capable of projecting force at significant range and speed. Tormund looked at the ceiling again. At the Infinity, he couldn't see through it. Flying machines, he said slowly. How many? Current deployment ready count is 41 Pelican dropships in transport and fire support configuration, 12 broadsword fighters and 6 longsword interceptors, Roland said, plus ground vehicles, heavy weapon platforms, and how do they fight the dead? John interrupted, not impatiently, with the specific focus of someone who had stripped the question to its essential. The weapons project high-velocity kinetic rounds and energy-based munitions, Roland said. Against biological targets, the kinetic rounds are effective at stopping conventional threats. Against animated dead, against the whites, kinetic force works, but they don't stay down, John said. You have to burn them or destroy the connection to the Night King. Which means fire, the chief said. Yes, John said. We have fire, the chief said. At scale? At considerable scale, the chief said. John looked at the chief, at the armor, at the device on the table that was Roland, at everything the Infinity represented. 17,000 people and 41 flying machines and 12 Spartan foes, and the specific military capability of a civilization that had been at war with alien extinction for 30 years. He thought about the Night's Watch, about 63 men in black cloaks, about the specific weight of an impossible problem carried for so long that impossible had become ordinary. He made the decision he had been making since Ghost sat down beside the chief's armor. I want to show you something, he said. He stood. The chief stood. They walked out of the great hall and up the stairs and onto the wall. The morning was arriving, the specific gray-white quality of a northern dawn, the sun coming up behind clouds that carried the quality of clouds that were not weather but something else, the sky pressing down with the specific cold of a world that had decided winter was not a season but a condition. John stood at the wall's northern edge. The chief stood beside him, and together they looked at what was north of the wall, at the army, at the gray horizon that was not gray from distance but from the sheer mass of the dead, at the specific terrible scale of it. The chief was quiet for a long time. Roland, he said. Sir, Roland said through the comm. Get Captain Lasky on the line, the chief said. Tell him we are committing to the engagement. Yes, sir, and sir, I know what I'm committing us to, Roland. I know you do, sir. I was going to say... A pause. I was going to say that I think it's the right call. The chief looked at the army, at what it was, at what it would reach if nothing stopped it, at the 63 men in black cloaks who had been holding the line against it with swords. John was watching him. Your people will fight for a world that isn't theirs, John said. They'll fight because the people in this world need help, the chief said. The location doesn't change the math. John looked at him, at the visor, at the armor, at the figure who had come from somewhere that had no name in any Westerosi language, and had looked at the most terrible thing John's world contained, and had said, We're here to help. Why? John said. Not with suspicion, with genuine need to understand. You don't know us. You didn't choose to be here. You could stay on your ship and wait for a way home. The chief looked at the army. No, he said, we couldn't. Why not? The answer came without pause, without the specific deliberation of someone constructing a response, with the flat certainty of something that had been true for 30 years and had been true before that and was not going to stop being true, because they're going to die if nobody helps them, the chief said. And we can help them. He paused. That's the whole thing, he said. That's all of it. John looked at the army, at the gray horizon, at the specific impossible weight of what was coming, and felt for the first time in a very long time something that was not the weight of the problem alone, the weight of the problem shared. Captain Thomas Lasky had a rule about communication with unknown civilizations. The rule was, don't until you understood enough about the civilization to know what communication would cost you. It was a rule he had developed not from any official UNSC protocol. The official protocols for first contact were extensive, carefully written, and almost entirely theoretical because the only civilizations the UNSC had contacted were the Covenant, who had responded to first contact by trying to destroy humanity, and the Forerunners, who had responded by being dead. The rule was personal, earned. It had the specific authority of something learned through experience rather than written in a manual. He was about to break it, not carelessly, not because the situation had overwhelmed the rule, because the chief had committed the Infinity to the engagement, and commitment to an engagement that involved 17,000 personnel and the full combat capacity of humanity's most significant warship required Lasky to be in contact with the people on the ground who were going to be fighting alongside those 17,000 personnel, which meant talking to whoever was running Westeros, which was, Roland had informed him, with the dry delivery of an AI, relaying information he found both accurate and complicated, unclear. Multiple claimants, Roland said from his station on the bridge. The political situation below is... Give me the version with the fewest proper nouns, Lasky said. Roland paused. King's Landing is the capital. It is currently controlled by House Lannister through a king named Joffrey, who is, I'm going to use a technical term, not the legitimate heir by any rigorous standard, sitting on a throne called the Iron Throne, which is currently contested by multiple claimants, including a queen named Daenerys Targaryen, who has 3 dragons and is approaching from the east, and a commander named Jon Snow, who the chief is currently speaking with at the wall, and who appears to be the most militarily competent person in the immediate theater. Roland paused. There is also a significant wildfire problem in King's Landing, but I have chosen to treat that as a secondary issue for the moment. What is the political relationship between Jon Snow and Daenerys Targaryen? Lasky said. Adversarial in the political sense, aligned in the practical sense, complicated in the personal sense, Roland said. Jon Snow needs the dragonglass that Daenerys controls. Daenerys needs Jon Snow's knowledge of the northern threat. Neither of them has fully committed to working with the other, because commitment requires political concessions that both of them find expensive. Classic alliance problem, Lasky said. Yes, sir. The specific version where the thing that requires the alliance is not yet sufficiently threatening to override the political calculation. "It's going to be sufficiently threatening in 18 hours, Lasky said. "Yes, sir. I believe that timeline will concentrate minds significantly." Lasky looked at the surface scans, at the army of the dead, at the wall, at the specific geography of a situation that required two political rivals to cooperate with each other and also with an alien warship that had appeared in their sky without warning or explanation. "Where is Daenerys Targaryen currently?" he said. "Dragonstone, sir, an island fortress approximately." "Can we raise her?" Roland paused. "Raise her in the communication sense, sir. She is not on any electromagnetic frequency I can identify. The civilization below does not have radio communications." "Then how do we talk to her?" "Traditionally, in this civilization, through ravens," Roland said. Lasky looked at him. "Birds," Roland confirmed. "Trained carrier pigeons, essentially, used to convey written messages across distances. It is, I want to be honest about this, sir, not an ideal communication architecture for a time-sensitive military coordination situation." "No," Lasky said, "it is not." He looked at the surface display, at the geography between the Infinity's current position and Dragonstone, at the dragons visible on long-range thermal imaging, 3 signatures large, operating in the airspace around the island fortress, with the ease of things that had decided the sky was theirs. "The dragons," he said. "Yes, sir. They're visible at altitude." "Very much so, sir. At current resolution, I can provide you with a detailed thermal profile of each individual animal." Lasky thought, the thing about Daenerys Targaryen, based on everything Roland had assembled from atmospheric intercepts, from the specific intelligence picture that Infinity's systems had been building since their arrival, was that she had 3 dragons and an army and the specific political position of someone who had been building toward a specific goal her entire life and was very close to achieving it. People who were very close to achieving specific goals their entire life were not people who responded well to being ignored. "We need her to come to us," Lasky said. "Sir? She has 3 dragons. She has been building toward ruling this world. An alien warship appearing in her sky is not something she is going to ignore indefinitely." Lasky paused. "We make ourselves visible, specifically visible, not threatening. Visible. We let her see what we are, and we trust that someone who has spent her life navigating power is going to understand that the Infinity changes the power equation. And if she responds with the dragons," Roland said, "we don't respond with force, we respond with communication." Lasky paused. "What is the translation situation?" "The language spoken below, Common Tongue, in their nomenclature, has sufficient structural similarity to pre-technical Earth languages that I have been able to build a working translation matrix from the atmospheric intercepts. Functional, though not complete." Roland paused. "I can provide real-time translation at approximately 92% accuracy." 8% is going to cause problems," Lasky said. "The 8% is primarily archaic vocabulary and regional dialect variation, sir. A core communication will be accurate." "Good enough," Lasky said. "Get me a channel to Dragonstone." "Sir, as I mentioned, they don't have—" "Roland, get me a channel to Dragonstone. Figure out how." Roland made the sound of an AI who was going to figure out how. What Roland figured out involved the Infinity's communications array, broadcasting on a specific frequency band that was not radio in the electromagnetic sense, but in the acoustic sense. A modulated sound projection that could be focused on a specific geographic location with sufficient precision to be heard by the people there and not the people adjacent to them, generated by the same atmospheric processing systems that the ship used for planetary approach calculations. It was, Roland noted, probably the most technologically sophisticated way anyone had ever tried to talk to a person through a castle wall. The message he broadcast to Dragonstone was brief, not because brevity was an obvious diplomatic choice, though it was, but because the chief had given him specific guidance on the matter when Lasky had asked for his input. "Say what you need to say and stop," the chief had said. "People who don't know you fill the silence with what they're afraid of. Give them as little silence as possible." The message said, "This is Captain Thomas Lasky of the UNSC Infinity. We arrived in your world by accident, and we are not your enemy. We are aware of the army of the dead in the north and the nature of the threat it represents. We have capabilities that may be relevant to addressing that threat. We would like to speak with Daenerys Targaryen at her earliest convenience." Roland broadcast it 3 times. Then he waited. He did not have to wait long. Daenerys Targaryen had been on the cliffs above Dragonstone when the voice came. She had been there for the same reason she went to the cliffs most mornings, because the sea wind was honest in a way that nothing inside the castle was, because standing at the edge of something vast had a specific quality that reminded her what scale actually looked like, because Drogon liked to circle the island at dawn, and watching him from the cliffs was the specific ordinary miracle she permitted herself before the day required her to be a queen rather than a person. She had been thinking about Jon Snow. She had been thinking about Jon Snow more than was strategically convenient, which was itself a strategic inconvenience she had been managing for 2 weeks, with the specific focused effort of someone who understood that letting strategic inconveniences become personal ones was how you lost wars. Then the voice came, out of the air, not from a person, no mouth, no body, no location she could identify. From the sky itself somehow, directed specifically at the cliff she was standing on with the specific quality of something that had been aimed. She did not move. She did not call for Missandei, who was inside. She did not draw a weapon, though she did not have one, which was a choice she had made about her mornings, because mornings were the time when she was a person rather than a queen. She stood very still and listened. A ship in the sky, not her enemy, the army of the dead, capabilities, a name, Lasky, that meant nothing to her in any language she knew. She looked up, at the specific point in the sky that the voice had seemed to come from. She had excellent vision. She had always had excellent vision, a Targaryen quality, the Maester said, something in the bloodline. She could see things at distance that other people could not. What she saw when she looked at the specific point in the sky from which the voice had come was a shape, vast, dark against the morning sky, moving with the specific, unhurried confidence of something that had nowhere it needed to be urgently because nothing in this sky could threaten it. She looked at it for a long time. Then she said quietly, to Drogon, who had come to land on the cliff beside her at some point during this, and was watching the shape in the sky, with the focused attention of an apex predator encountering something larger than itself for the first time. "That's a ship." Drogon made a sound. "I know," she said. "I know it doesn't look like any ship we've seen." She looked at the shape, at what it represented. She had been called the Unburnt, the Mother of Dragons, Breaker of Chains, Khaleesi of the Great Grass Sea. She had walked through fire and hatched dragons from stone and freed cities and crossed an ocean, and was 3 weeks from claiming the throne that was her birthright. She had never seen anything like what was in the sky above Dragonstone. "Missandei," she said. Missandei appeared from the castle entrance with the specific quality she brought to everything. Composed, attentive, carrying the specific intelligence of someone who had been processing the world at high speed since childhood and had never once stopped. "My queen," Missandei said. "Did you hear it?" Daenerys said. "The voice from the sky, yes." Missandei paused. "I have been trying to place the accent for the last 2 minutes, and I cannot. It matches no language I have encountered." "And you have encountered many," Daenerys said. 19 fluently, Missandei agreed. "This is not one of them, though the structure is..." She paused. "The structure is human, my queen. Whoever produced that voice learned language the way we learn language. It does not feel like something other than human." "It said it was a captain," Daenerys said. "Of that." She gestured at the shape in the sky. Missandei looked, absorbed the shape, absorbed what the shape implied about scale. "My queen," she said carefully, "that vessel is..." "Larger than Dragonstone," Daenerys said. "Considerably." Daenerys looked at Drogon, at the shape in the sky, at the fact that Drogon, who had never in his existence encountered anything he could not dominate, through the specific combination of size and fire, was watching the shape with interest rather than aggression. Drogon assessed threats immediately. This was not how he looked at threats. This was how he looked at something he was still working out. "Prepare my council chamber," Daenerys said. "I need to think." She walked back toward the castle. At the door, she stopped, turned back, looked at the ship in the sky one more time. "Missandei," she said. "My queen." "If they wanted to destroy us, they could have done it from up there," Daenerys said, "without us even knowing they were there. They chose to speak instead." "Yes, my queen," Missandei said. "That's worth something," Daenerys said. She went inside. Tyrion Lannister had also heard the voice. He had been in the map room at Dragonstone doing what he spent most of his time doing, which was managing the gap between what Daenerys wanted to accomplish and what the available resources and political architecture allowed, which was a gap of considerable width and required considerable management. The voice came through the map room's window clearly. He stopped what he was doing, stood at the window, looked at the sky. He found the shape. He looked at the shape for approximately 30 seconds, with the focused attention of the most intelligent person in Westeros encountering something that required recalibration of several foundational assumptions. Then he said, to the empty map room, to no one, "Well." He sat down, picked up his wine. "Well," he said again. He thought about the voice, about the message, about the army of the dead in the north that everyone kept telling him was real and that he had been treating as real in the specific cautious way he treated things that he could not verify personally. taking the threat seriously in his planning while maintaining private uncertainty about its exact parameters. He thought about the shape in the sky, about a ship larger than Dragonstone, about a captain named Lasky who had said capabilities that may be relevant in the specific understated way of someone who had significant capabilities and was choosing to present them modestly as a diplomatic choice rather than because they were uncertain of their relevance. He thought about what Daenerys was going to decide. He thought about what he was going to advise her to decide. He thought about 17,000 people on a ship in the sky, and an army of the dead in the north, and the Iron Throne in the south, and the specific impossible geometry of a situation that had just acquired a variable that was going to change every calculation. He poured a second cup of wine, stood, went to find Daenerys. He had things to say. They were not the things he would normally say in a council meeting. With the careful political framing he had spent 20 years developing, they were the true things, the ones that the situation had just made unavoidable, because Tyrion Lannister had looked at the shape in the sky and done the specific thing he did when he encountered something genuinely new. He updated his model. The model now included, there are civilizations out there that make dragons look like local color. The model now included, the Game of Thrones just got considerably more complex. The model now included, most importantly, whoever is on that ship and whatever they want. They heard the voice in the sky saying the army of the dead is real, and they responded by wanting to talk about it. Which means they take it seriously, which means they have seen things like it before. He knocked on the door of Daenerys's council chamber. "Come in, Tyrion," she said. He entered. She was standing at the window looking at the sky with the specific quality of someone doing the thinking that needed to be done before the speaking. "I assume," he said, "that we are both going to say the same thing." "Which is," she said. "That we need to talk to them," he said. "Today, before the 18 hours are up." She looked at him. "You heard the message." "Every word," he said. 18 hours, they said, which means they have already assessed the northern situation in more detail than anything our ravens have given us in the last month. He paused. The army of the dead reaches the wall in 18 hours, and a ship the size of a city appeared in our sky with apparently capabilities relevant to the situation. He paused. "My queen, I have advised you on many decisions. This one is straightforward." "Is it?" she said. "We talked to them," Tyrion said. "Everything else comes after the talking." She looked at the sky, at the ship, at Drogon, circling outside at altitude, watching it. "They could be dangerous," she said. "My queen," Tyrion said. "They could reduce Dragonstone to dust from up there without expending significant effort. If they intended to be dangerous to us, they would not have sent a polite message requesting conversation." He paused. "Dangerous things that want to be dangerous don't introduce themselves first." She was quiet. "What do they want?" she said. "To talk," Tyrion said, "and from the content of the message, to address the northern threat." He paused. "Those are not the wants of an enemy." She looked at the ship one more time. "Arrange it," she said. "I want to speak to this Captain Lasky." She paused. "And I want to speak to whoever they have on the ground." "They have someone on the ground?" Tyrion said. "The message said capabilities that may be relevant," Daenerys said. "You don't say capabilities from a ship. You say capabilities from the ground." She looked at him. "They have someone at the wall." Tyrion absorbed this. "How did you—" "I have been learning to think like a military commander for 2 years," she said. "Some of it has taken." She walked toward the door. "Tyrion," she said, "my queen." "The army of the dead," she said. "The ship appeared on the same day it became impossible to ignore. That is either a coincidence or it isn't," Tyrion said. "Yes," she said. She left. Tyrion stood in the council chamber, looked at the ship in the sky. "Or it isn't," he said quietly. He poured another cup of wine, drank, thought about the shape in the sky and the army in the north and the Game of Thrones that had just definitively become something larger than any of its players had understood it to be. He found, to his genuine surprise, that he was not afraid. He was interested, the specific interest of someone who had spent his entire life in the most complicated political game in his world, and had just discovered that his world was considerably larger than he had thought. "Right then," he said to the empty room. He went to arrange the meeting. Lasky received Daenerys's response at 0847 ship time. It came not as a voice transmission. The broadcast channel he had used was one way, the atmospheric projection technology not configured to receive, but as a physical signal, something Roland flagged on the visual sensors with the specific alert tone he used when the situation had produced something unexpected. "Captain," Roland said. "I see it," Lasky said. "On the main display, Dragonstone, the island fortress, and above it, ascending from the cliffs at the castle's eastern face, a dragon, not a small one. Drogon," Roland said, "the largest of the three, bonded to Daenerys Targaryen specifically, wingspan currently measuring at—" "I can see the wingspan, Roland." "I was going to say, it is larger than I expected," Roland said. My earlier estimate was conservative." Drogon rose to altitude, to the specific altitude of the Infinity's lower sensor range, and circled, not aggressively, the specific circling of something that was making a decision about whether to approach. The flight pattern of an apex predator encountering something it had not previously encountered and was assessing rather than attacking. "He's looking at us," Commander Palmer said from her station. "Yes," Lasky said. "What do we do?" "Nothing," Lasky said. "We let him look." Palmer had the expression she wore when she had a response to something and had decided the response was not worth saying. She said it anyway. "Sir, that animal is approximately the size of a pelican and appears to be capable of generating temperatures in excess of—" "He's assessing, Commander," Lasky said. "Threat behavior looks different. This is assessment." "How do you know the difference?" "The chief told me," Lasky said. Palmer absorbed this. Drogon circled for 4 minutes. Then he descended, not back to Dragonstone, toward the Infinity, the specific descending approach of something that had completed its assessment and had arrived at a conclusion. "Roland," Lasky said. "I see it, sir. He is approaching the port observation deck." "Open the outer bay on deck 7, Lasky said. "Give him somewhere to land that isn't a weapons platform." "Captain, I want to flag that inviting a dragon to land on the Infinity is a significant diplomatic gesture, yes," Lasky said. "Do it." "Yes, sir." "And, sir." "Roland, should I inform the crew that there will be a dragon on deck 7? Lasky thought about 4,000 combat-effective personnel. and how they would respond to a dragon landing on their ship. "Brief the Deck 7 crew specifically," he said. "General crew notification after landing is confirmed." Meaning after the dragon is already aboard and it's too late to argue about it, Roland said. "Yes," Lasky said. "That is a remarkably pragmatic approach to crew management, sir." "Thank you, Roland." Daenerys Targaryen landed on the UNSC Infinity at 0911. She came on Drogon's back. Not because it was the only way she could have come. A boat would have served. A smaller dragon would have served. But because arriving on Drogon was a statement and Daenerys understood statements. The specific statement she was making. "I am not coming to you as a supplicant. I am coming to you as the most powerful individual on this world, on the back of the most powerful animal on this world, of my own choice and my own motion." It was a very good statement. The Deck 7 crew received it with the professionalism of people who had been briefly warned and had responded to the warning with the specific competence of soldiers who had been through enough that a dragon landing on their ship was, on the scale of what they had collectively experienced, not the worst thing. Drogon sat down on the observation deck with a delicacy that surprised everyone present, the specific controlled precision of a very large animal that was accustomed to navigating in spaces smaller than its wingspan. He folded his wings, looked around with the golden eyes of something that found its current environment interesting and had decided not to destroy it. Daenerys dismounted. She was not what Lasky had expected, though he had examined himself for expectations and tried to clear them. She was young, that was the first thing. Not young in the way of someone who had not yet lived, young in the way of someone who had compressed an enormous amount of living into a small number of years and was still carrying the compression. She moved with the specific quality of someone who had learned to be entirely present in every space she occupied, who did not allow the space to define her, but defined herself to the space. She was also, Lasky found himself noting this and then noting that he was noting it, completely unafraid. She stepped off Drogon's back onto the Infinity's deck and looked around with the specific attention of someone who was filing everything she saw for later use. Lasky stepped forward. "Queen Daenerys," he said, "Captain Thomas Lasky, welcome aboard the UNSC Infinity." She looked at him, at the uniform, at the deck around them, the specific technological environment of a warship that was 3 centuries more advanced than anything this world had produced. "Captain Lasky," she said in the common tongue that Roland was translating in Lasky's earpiece at 92% accuracy. "Your ship is larger than I expected." "I've been told that," Lasky said. "By whom?" "Everyone who's seen it," Lasky said. Something moved in her expression. The specific movement of someone encountering unexpected dry humor in a situation they had prepared for solemnity. She almost smiled. "My advisor will join us shortly," she said. "Tyrion Lannister. He is perceptive. I find his perspective useful in situations I have not encountered before." "I look forward to meeting him," Lasky said. "We have someone similar." "Your AI," she said. Lasky paused. "You heard the message clearly," he said. "Every word," she said. "Your voice came from the sky with the precision of someone who had aimed it specifically at the cliff I was standing on." She looked at him. "That is not an accident." "No," Lasky said. "You knew where I was." We have been scanning the surface since we arrived, Lasky said. We try to understand the situation we're in. And what situation are you in? She said. It was, Lasky recognized, a genuine question, not a challenge or a test. The specific, genuine curiosity of someone who wanted to understand the other party's perspective before they began the negotiation. We are a long way from home, Lasky said. We arrived here by accident. We have 17,000 people aboard who need to eventually find their way back. He paused. And we arrived to find a world about to be overrun by something that, in our experience, requires a specific and coordinated response. Your experience, she said. You have seen things like the Night King before. Not exactly like him, Lasky said, but the category, yes. She was quiet. The army of the dead, she said. 30,000 confirmed, possibly more. I know the number, she said. I have ravens from the north. She paused. So what I do not know is why an alien warship that appeared in my sky 3 days ago is more concerned with the army of the dead than with the political situation it has arrived in the middle of. Because the army of the dead kills everyone, Lasky said. The political situation kills some people and not others. We are more interested in the first problem. She looked at him. You don't care about the Iron Throne, she said. I care about the people who are going to die if the Night King isn't stopped, Lasky said. The throne is a separate question. For most people who come to this world, the throne is the only question, she said. We're not from this world, Lasky said. The throne doesn't have any claims on us. She looked at him for a long time, with the specific, focused quality of someone who was reading the person in front of them at the deepest level they knew how to read. You're telling the truth, she said. Yes, Lasky said. How do I know that? You're standing on my ship, Lasky said. If I wanted to be dishonest with you, I had 17 ways to be dishonest with you before you landed. I chose the one way that required you to come to me. That's a choice that costs me leverage, not gains it. She was quiet. Then, show me. Show you what? Everything, she said. Your ship, your soldiers, your weapons. Whatever capabilities you have that are relevant to the northern situation. She paused. I want to see what we're dealing with before I decide what to do about it. Lasky looked at her, or at the queen who had spent her life building toward a specific goal and had arrived on an alien warship and had asked not for terms or assurances, but for information. Roland, he said. Already prepared the tour, sir, Roland said from the deck speakers, because Roland had been listening to the entire conversation and had, characteristically, been 6 steps ahead of it. Daenerys looked at the speaker. The AI, she said. Yes, Roland said. Hello, Your Grace. I have been studying your language for approximately 72 hours. And I want to say that the old Valyrian dialect you occasionally use is considerably more interesting than the common tongue, and I have been enjoying the translation problem. Daenerys stared at the speaker. It studied my language, she said to Lasky. He does that, Lasky said, in 72 hours. He's very fast, Lasky said. I prefer to say thorough, Roland said. Fast implies haste. There was no haste. I simply allocated a significant portion of my processing capacity to the problem because it seemed important. Daenerys looked at Drogon. Drogon looked at the speaker that Roland was talking through. with the specific interest of an apex predator encountering something it could not eat and was not sure what to do with. "Shall we begin?" Roland said pleasantly. The tour lasted 90 minutes. Lasky walked her through the Infinity with the specific combination of openness and strategic omission of someone who was building trust rather than surrendering information. He showed her the Combat Operations Center, the specific evidence of a military capability that operated at a scale her world had never imagined. He showed her the Pelican Bay with 41 dropships in various states of readiness. He showed her the weapons systems, briefly enough to establish scale without providing a detailed technical briefing she did not need. He showed her the Spartan 4s, Commander Palmer's team, in full Mjolnir armor, standing in the armory bay with the specific quality of soldiers who were at rest but had never fully committed to rest as a permanent condition. Daenerys stopped in front of them, looked at the armor, at the specific scale of it. "Soldiers," she said. "Spartan-class soldiers," Lasky said. "Augmented, enhanced physically and cognitively through a program that—" He paused, looking for language she would have access to. "They are significantly stronger and faster than standard soldiers. The armor enhances them further." "Like knights," she said. "Better than any knight," Palmer said from inside her helmet. Daenerys looked at the helmet. "The chief," she said to Lasky. "He's the one at the wall, the one Jon Snow is working with." "Yes," Lasky said. "He is one of these?" "He is the original version," Lasky said. "The program that produced Commander Palmer's team was built on what he is. He has been doing this for 30 years. Daenerys looked at the Spartan foes, at what 30 years of the program that produced them had produced as its original. "I want to meet him," she said. "He's at the wall," Lasky said. "Then we go to the wall," she said. It was not a request. Lasky looked at her, at the queen who had landed on his ship on a dragon and had asked for everything and had processed the everything with the specific comprehensive attention of someone who was genuinely trying to understand before she decided. "Roland," he said. "Pelican 4 is ready, sir," Roland said. Daenerys turned to look at the speaker. "You were preparing that before he asked," she said. "I try to anticipate," Roland said. "It saves time." "It also assumes you know what people are going to decide," she said. "I had a high confidence level," Roland said. "You are someone who makes decisions efficiently once you have sufficient information. You now have sufficient information." She looked at the speaker for a moment. "I find you unsettling," she said. "That is the most common initial response," Roland said. "It usually improves with time." "Usually. Tyrion Lannister will likely find me immediately delightful," Roland said. "He has the kind of mind that enjoys other minds operating at speed. Not everyone does." Daenerys looked at Lasky. "Your AI has opinions about people it has never met," she said. "Constantly," Lasky said. "Are the opinions accurate?" Lasky thought about the accuracy of Roland's opinions. "Annoyingly so," he said. Daenerys almost smiled again. This time she let it arrive. Brief, specific. The specific smile of someone who had not expected to find anything amusing today, and had found something amusing. "Pelican 4, she said. "Let's go." The Pelican descended through the late afternoon light toward Castle Black. Daenerys was at the viewport. the specific viewport behavior of someone who had spent their entire life moving through the world on the back of an animal and was experiencing mechanized flight for the first time and was refusing to be visibly overwhelmed by the experience while being visibly overwhelmed by the experience. She was watching the landscape below, the north, the forests and the snow and the specific ancient quality of a landscape that had been exactly what it was for longer than the Targaryen dynasty had existed. The wall. "It's larger than I thought," she said. 700 feet, Roland said through the Pelican speakers, approximately 300 miles in length, built approximately 8,000 years ago by a civilization that understood it was containing something significant. "The Night King," she said. "The Night King's army," Roland said. "The Night King himself may predate the wall. The historical record is incomplete." "He predate the wall," Daenerys said. "You mean he was there before anyone built anything to contain him?" "Yes," Roland said. She was quiet, looking at the wall, at what it represented. At 8,000 years of that specific line between the living and the dead, maintained by people who had understood what was on the other side and had decided the line was worth maintaining. "And Jon Snow is up there," she said. "At Castle Black, yes," Roland said, "with the chief." "What is the chief doing?" she said. "At last check. Planning," Roland said. "He has been in the Great Hall with Jon Snow and several of the Night's Watch officers for the last 4 hours, working through tactical scenarios." A pause. "He does this. He works through every possible configuration of a problem before the problem arrives. It is thorough," Daenerys said. "Yes," Roland said, "though the chief would say it is simply necessary." She looked at the wall, at the specific quality of the pre-dawn light touching it, the ice catching it and scattering it in the specific way that very large quantities of ice caught and scattered light. Beautiful. In the specific way that things were beautiful when they had been doing their job perfectly for 8,000 years. "What's on the other side?" she said. "The army," Roland said. "Approximately 15 kilometers from the wall's northern face, at last sensor contact." A pause. "Your Grace, the timeline has compressed. Current movement rate puts contact with the wall at approximately 11 hours. Daenerys turned from the viewport. I looked at Lasky, at the specific expression of someone who had just received information that converted a strategic discussion into an operational necessity. 11 hours, she said. "Yes," Lasky said. "Then we don't have time for introductions," she said. "No," Lasky said. "We have time for one thing." "What?" "A plan," Lasky said. "A real one. Everyone who has a role in this, in the same room at the same time, building it together rather than coordinating around the edges." She looked at him. "Jon Snow," she said. "And the chief," Lasky said. "And you." He paused. "The three of you have between you approximately everything this situation requires. Snow's knowledge of the enemy and the terrain, your dragons, the chief's experience and the Infinity's capabilities. And you," she said. "I'm the logistics," Lasky said. "The plan is yours." She was quiet. The Pelican descended. Castle Black was visible below. The specific small and determined quality of it. The cluster of buildings at the base of the wall's immensity. The lights in the great hall windows. The figures on the battlements looking at the Pelican with the specific expressions of people encountering something unprecedented for the second time in as many days and managing it. "Roland," she said. "Your Grace," Roland said. "The Night King," she said, "the entity at the center of the army. You have been analyzing him since you arrived." "Yes." "What do you think he is?" Roland was quiet for a moment. The specific pause of an AI who was being asked a question that his instruments had not fully answered and who was choosing between the honest, incomplete answer and the falsely complete one. He chose, as he always chose, the honest one. "I think," Roland said carefully, "that he is something this world made a very long time ago to solve a very specific problem, and that he solved the problem, and that nobody told him he was done." A pause. "And I think that 8,000 years of not being told you are done produces a specific kind of momentum. That is not rage, not malevolence, just direction. The direction of something that has been doing one thing for so long that doing the thing has become the only mode available." The pelican was very quiet. "That," Daenerys said softly, "is one of the saddest things I have ever heard." "Yes," Roland said, "it is." She looked at the wall, at what was north of it, at the army in the dark, at the thing at its center, at 8,000 years of one direction, and then she looked south, at the world, at everything in it worth protecting, at the specific, ordinary, irreplaceable texture of living things doing their living. She thought about what she had come here to do, about the throne, about everything the throne represented and everything she had sacrificed for it, about a voice from the sky saying, "We are aware of the threat and we have capabilities," about Roland saying nobody told him he was done. She made a decision, not the political decision, not the throne decision, the human one. "When we land," she said, "I want to speak to Jon Snow first, before the plan, before the strategy." She paused. I have been making him wait for something I should have given, without making him wait." Lasky looked at her, at the queen who had just decided something at the expense of her own strategic position. "I'll give you the room," he said. The pelican touched down in Castle Black's yard. The gate opened. Jon Snow came out. He stopped when he saw who was on the pelican. He looked at Daenerys. She looked at him. 11 hours. Everything that needed to happen in 11 hours. And somewhere in the great hall behind Jon, the chief was still at the table with his maps and his tactical analysis and the specific focused patience of someone who was working through every possible configuration of a problem before the problem arrived. And somewhere above them all, in the dark of an alien sky that was becoming less alien every hour, the UNSC Infinity held its position, and Roland ran his analysis, and the sensors watched the army moving south with the specific patient advance of something that had been doing this for 8,000 years and had never once been stopped. It had never once been stopped. Until now, possibly, if the next 11 hours went correctly, if the people who needed to be in the same room got into the same room, if the things that had been separate, the dragons and the Spartan and the warship and the man who had died and come back and the woman who had walked through fire, found the specific alignment that the situation required, if. In the great hall, the chief looked at the map, at the wall, at the army on the other side, at 11 hours. He thought about the things he had been through, about the covenant and the flood and the didact, and 30 years of the specific impossible mathematics of fighting extinction, About Cortana. He always thought about Cortana. He looked at the map. "Roland," he said through the comm. "Sir," Roland said. "Daenerys Targaryen is in the yard." "I know," the chief said. "I heard the Pelican. Jon Snow went to meet her." "Good," the chief said. "They needed to talk." "Sir," Roland said, "the Army's contact estimate has been revised. 11 hours. The chief looked at the map, at the wall, at the Army on the other side, at everything between now and 11 hours from now, at everything that needed to be right. He thought about what Roland had said on the Pelican. Nobody told him he was done. He looked at the map, at the Night King's position, at the Army, at the specific cold intelligence at its center. He thought about what it was to fight something that had never been stopped, about what it would feel like to something that old, that patient, that singular in its direction, to be stopped. He thought about whether stopped was what they were going to do, or whether there was something else available, something that ended this differently. He looked at the map for a long time. Then he said to Roland, quietly, with the specific quality of someone who has been building toward a thought for hours and has arrived at it, "Roland, the Night King, the entity at the center." "Yes, sir?" "When we fight him, when we get through the Army and we reach him, what are we actually trying to accomplish?" Roland was quiet, but the specific quiet of an AI who has been asked a question he considers important and is giving it the weight it deserves. "Destruction of the central command node," Roland said. "Collapse of the animation network. End of the Army." "That's the tactical objective," the chief said. "What are we actually trying to accomplish?" Another silence. "Sir," Roland said slowly, "I'm not sure I understand the distinction. We are trying to stop something that has been going in one direction for 8,000 years, the chief said. "Destroying the command node stops it, but," he paused, "is there a way to stop it that isn't destruction?" Roland was very quiet. "Sir," he said finally, "that is a question I have been not asking since we arrived." "Ask it now," the chief said. Roland paused. "I will need time." "You have 11 hours, the chief said. "Yes, sir." The chief looked at the map, at the wall, at what was on the other side, at what was coming. Outside, in the yard, Jon Snow and Daenerys Targaryen were having the conversation that needed to happen. Above, the Infinity held position, and in the dark beyond the wall, the Army moved, one step at a time.